for what he described as spiritual cleansing, avert his financial difficulties following his return from the Netherlands. The suspect, per court document, was initially ordered to provide a live python for the sacrifice, but he instead suggested a human as a replacement due to his fear for snakes. It was against this backdrop that he decided to take his 11-year-old daughter to the spiritualist for her to be killed for the rituals. The prosecutor, Chief Inspector Richard Amoa, pleaded with the court to remand the accused to enable the police to conduct a thorough investigation into the matter. He said the accused was arrested on Friday, June 3, hence investigations into the matter only began on Monday, 5, 2022. Mr. Ralph Ejapong, counsel for the accused, did not oppose the request by the prosecutor, but pleaded with the court to order the police to allow him access to the accused person so he could have conference with him. The magistrate, Madam Ama Aduma Kukwache, remanded the accused into police custody and directed the police to allow counsel access to him on Tuesday and Thursdays between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. She adjourned the case to June 20, 2022. The brief facts of the case state that a 47-year-old in May 2022 had a discussion with a friend about facing financial difficulties, and the friend suggested that he would need a spiritual cleansing to turn things around for him. According to the prosecutor, the friend later introduced the suspect to one Nana Fusu, aka Nana Keke, to assist him see a spiritualist for help. On May 29, Nana Fusu took the suspect to Nana Edubuafo Jr., who is a spiritualist and a herbalist at Oibikon for money rituals. The spiritualist feigned interest and told the suspect to furnish him with a date of birth of his last two children to enable him determine which of them would be suitable for the sacrifice. The prosecutor said on May 31, the suspect rang the victim's mother to confirm the day the victim was born and told her that he will pick up the victim to be taken to a friend who had returned from abroad for measurement so that a dress would be sewn for her. The spiritualist then alerted the Oibi police about the intended human sacrifice by the suspect, and the police urged him to play along with the suspect so he could be arrested when he produces the child at the herbal center for the said sacrifice. On June 3, the suspect arrived at the herbal center with the victim as she was instructed by the spiritualist to sit in the hall, whilst the suspect was also instructed to change his clothing on the compound and was later given a white calico to tie around his waist. The suspect was then given a concoction to bath, and in the course of that, the spiritualist called in the Oibi police, who came and arrested him and rescued the victim.
Okay, you're watching GTV Breakfast, and we do have with us our colleague Daryl Amantego, who was at the home of the mother of the girl in this money ritual case. Alan, hi.
Good morning, Kath.
Yes, well, what really stood out for you in that interview that you had with Madam Keme, the mother of the little girl?
The kind of aura around the mother, the daughter, well, let me say the mother, the children, and then the rest of the family who's joined them at home to more or less like look out for the child. And so
we didn't get that yesterday. So who was in the house when you went there?
Okay, so there was the grandmother, and then there was also an uncle from the mother's side, and then two other siblings. And it was actually one of the siblings who eventually met us halfway and took us to the house. But just before we got there, she got a call, and whoever called her warned her not to speak to the media. And so we had to kind of get her to understand that we're not here because we want to, as it were, say something or against you or anything. We're just here to speak to you and find out what you knew and how this whole thing came about. And then she went on the phone again, came back and said, all right, okay, that's fine, she'll talk.
Okay. Go ahead.
When you were speaking to her,
Yeah.
What did you get from her body language and how, when she was narrating the story to you?
From the very beginning, I saw what looks more like someone overwhelmed. She was in a state of shock, and clearly she couldn't just start from A or B. So I'll ask a question and she'll start from, anywhere. And so at one point, I remember she stopped herself and said, is this about me, my daughter, or about the father? And I was like, well, it's really about the whole thing. So what we want to understand is basically what had happened. We seemed not to know anything. You are caught up in this. So we want to know exactly what had happened, the whole thing. And then I remember asking her my opening questions. I'd asked her before, but then except that I put them in a different way.
Okay.
All right, so she came back previously and said, sorry, but I'll not speak for other people. I'll speak for myself and for my daughter. Okay.
So for the other people, she meant the other women who had children with a man.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I actually said, well, if you're not comfortable with any of my questions, please feel free, don't answer them. If you feel I'm asking you a question you don't have an answer for, feel free. Just say, I can't say it, or I don't know.
What was the mood of the girl? You saw the girl?
Yeah, sure.
What was she doing when you went to the house?
She was with the grandmother and the mother in the room. When the other sibling brought us and I knocked on the door, it was the mother who first came out and we exchanged pleasantries, and then she just peeked from behind the mother to see who the mother was talking to. And so when the mother had come out of the door and we're like walking towards the car, she came, looked out again, and then went back in. So I asked, is that her? Pretending I've not seen her already on social media. And so she's like, oh yeah, that's her. And I was like, oh, she look in good spirit then. And then she was like, well, me named her. And so we started walking towards our car just because we were not sure if the ones with her at home would allow the interview anyway. So I kind of brought her to the car. And then when finally I realized, oh, she's okay, she would want to talk to us, she said,
The mother, right?
yes, let's not talk here. And so we moved away into the uncompleted building.
And that's where you had the conversation?
Yeah, where we had the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, from the demeanor of the young girl, I mean, what could you see? I mean, on externally, of course, you won't know what's happening internally.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to speak to her?
Yeah, I spoke to her, except that she said really very little.
What did she say?
She only spoke to confirm her name, and then she was like, smiley. She gave me like what I would normally call plastic smile, because she wasn't sure. So she gave that plastic smile, and then she went back. And so when I asked if she was okay to join us, she was hesitant. She's like, okay, not really. And so she started walking away from us, and the mother called her. And when the mother called her, I assured her that, look, we're not going to film you, we're not going to show your face, but if you still feel you don't want to sit with us, just feel free, go away. And so the mother said to her, okay, come. The mother reassured her again that, look, they're not going to film you, you're going to sit with us, but no camera will be on you. If anything, it will be your back. And if you hear your name, don't turn, just keep looking away. And so just when she sat there, director came back to me and said, Alan, we don't want the child anywhere on our screens.
Right.
Please protect her. And so we asked her to leave us.
Okay. All right. So at the end of the interview, what was your impression?
I saw especially the grandmother, and I must say the grandmother has seemed to be someone who's just recently suffered a stroke, and you can clearly tell someone who is broken. She looked more broken than the mother, and when we locked eyes, she had tears in her eyes, and so she was very grateful. Yedamasi, and then the uncle was like, the one who is giving them all the support to say, I'm here, you'll be fine, you're okay, don't worry. And so I again exchanged pleasantries with the uncle, and then we actually shook hands, and I was like, Medamasi, Monshe Omusui. And so she was like, he was like, yeah, don't worry, they'll be all right. And then
Yesterday, when you were interviewing the lady, you mentioned that the police were there,
Yeah.
and they had come to pick up the child. Does it mean that the child, they said it wasn't up to the family or the child to decide if they wanted to stay, if the child wanted to stay with their mom? So, what's happening in that regard? Is the child going to be collected from her mother? Is she going to be placed in special care? What's going to happen to the child after this? Even for the school, I hear the police were going to the school.
For what we gathered when we were there, the police had come in to find out what measures would be safe for the child if she's going to remain with the mother. What measures we in place to ensure her going out and coming in is one that is safe. And we're told they were going to go to the school to also speak to the school to find out what safety measures the school will also put in place, especially for her, since they want her to return to school immediately. And let me say this, the child herself feels more comfortable around her mother than any other person from what I saw. And so even when the police came and they were trying to get her to come to them, she was actually drawing close to us while the interview was still ongoing.
To her mom?
Yeah, she wanted to come to her mom as opposed to going to the police. And so the police officer, who was dressed in usual mufti, came to us and waved at me. And then I was like, yeah, thank you, but we'll be done in a minute and she'll be gone, because she wanted the mother to join them, because the child wouldn't stay with her anyway. So she wanted the mother to join them just so that she could attend to the child.
Okay. They just said they were looking at measures to how safe the child will be when she goes back to school. Did they say how they were going to take care of the child mentally, psychologically? Is the child going to see a psychologist? Did they say anything about that?
The police would not say anything to us, except, you know, they wanted the mother. I said, yeah, we'll be done in a minute, and then she'll join them. But from what I saw, because after the interview, I took time to watch them, interactions, police, girl, mother, and from what I saw, it was one of, okay, for what has happened, it's more about the child than anybody else. So our focus and our concentration is about the child.
Right.
And so you realize the police were almost all the time interested in how the child was interacting, what she was doing at any time, where she was going, until they were ready to go to the school. And so I think they left in the company of the mother, but I'm not sure here. I think I must have lost what actually took place over there. But I saw the mother go with them. So I imagine they left the child at home and the mother went with them to the school.
Okay, so you've spoken about the atmosphere in the house. How about the immediate surroundings? Did you have a lot of community people around there because of the police presence and then the media
Police
presence?
came in mufti and they didn't come in a marked car, so you would not even know if it was the police. Our vehicle looked more like a national security vehicle than, and so that was what got people wondering who was. And when we're having the interview, I saw a few neighbors peeking through the windows, seeing what was going on. And obviously, because we're busy with that, I would normally ignore them. But every now and then, I'll turn and look and see who is watching. And when we finished, by the time we finished, I realized a few people had gathered in front of the house. Just about 5, 6 maybe, a few people, a handful gathered in front of the house. And they seem more like people who were in a usual chit chat, you know, yeah, this is the house, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
The gentleman at the center of that, the man who effected the citizen's arrest, for want of a better word, Nana
herbalist.
Jr., yes. What we know so far of him, there are calls from a lot of people, general public, people in the comments saying, listen, this man should know a bit more than what the case seems to suggest.
Before I left GBC for that interview, I obviously wanted to enter from a neutral person's perspective, just so that I could get as much as I can get from the woman for that interview. That is also not to say that I didn't hold a certain view of what had taken place, i.e. the role of the herbalist, what would have caused the father to go to him, whether he advertised somewhere or the father was introduced through someone who's also used his services before. I had all this in mind But then I decided, look, they were not what was necessary at the time. But from off the record conversation with the woman, you also find that she was as naive as anything else you can talk about. Extremely naive. Unless someone will say, as from what I read on social media, which I don't want to re-echo, else it makes it look like I am regurgitating what somebody else had said. Really and truly, I would think that the herbalist seemed to know more than he's made it look like. And until we really know what he's saying to the police at this time, or what the father is saying to the police at this time, it would be us putting the cart before the horse.
Do you think is he a person of interest? Is the police talking to him?
Sure, the police should. If they are not, it will be a disservice to the man's case, right? It would be a justice denial to the man, because honestly, someone who's living abroad and not necessarily resident here, to have returned home and in a year found his way to a herbalist who is able to, make him rich overnight. I think there's more to it, and it's about time we pay attention to all these television stations popping up nearly every day.
Money
doublers, and they do this in prime time. So even in the afternoon, you have children watching and seeing all these things, and that also takes me back to the conversation which took place between the mother and the daughter saying what she said to the mother. I'm sure. I mean, it's on record, so it's not as if I'm going to say something off the record. That when she had discussed what the father had said or what the father had asked about her day of birth and her name, the daughter retorted saying, "Could it be that he wanted to use me for money rituals?" For an 11-year-old child to think along these lines, you ask yourself,
what she's been exposed to.
What has she been exposed to?
Conversations.
What does she know? And for that to have come from her and the mother laughing over it also raises the question, the kind of conversation that goes on between mother and daughter.
Okay, I think we'll leave it here unless you have anything else you want to ask, Daryl.
Nope.
You're done? Okay, Daryl, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For that interview you had with Madam Keme, the mother of the little girl at the center of this money ritual issue. And just a quick note on that. So, latest is that the father of this little girl in the money ritual case has been remanded. He will reappear in court on the 20th of June. So that's the latest we have, and we'll be discussing it further on the headlines in about 21 minutes. You are watching GTV Breakfast, and we have the sports news with Maltiti coming up pretty shortly, and I have a feeling that Messi will be in the news. I have a sneaky feeling, yeah. And I'll be back with 7:20 headlines, and 8:30 we have a conversation on security. Your messages on 055-556-1034. What do you feel about this whole money ritual case? What are your questions? What are the unanswered questions? 055-556-1034. On Twitter, hashtag GTV Breakfast. Sports coming up in a jiffy.